Okay, so I think number 4 is your next number. Is that the way your notes go? Okay. So I broke this up into 2 because I didn't want to rush you on your bar graphs and your broken line graphs. Guys, look, again, the key is pay attention to detail. Be excellent. It's my job as a teacher to try to get you to be excellent. You should strive for excellence in what you do. Don't turn in garbage for homework. Don't turn in a bunch of scribble. Don't turn in a bunch of stuff that, you know, it takes a cryptologist to read. Turn in excellent work. Right? And that's the key. And the key is the little details. Pay attention to the little details. All right, so today is pie charts. Some call them pie graphs. Some call them circle graphs. Pie chart, pie graphs, circle graphs, all the same thing. And they're used to show how the data is separated into sections, which is another word of saying pieces, right? It shows you how much data in respect to the whole. How much of a piece a certain area is in respect to the whole. So if you look at the example here of customer satisfaction, you can see that half are very dissatisfied. That's not good. Now, before I go too far, let me explain a couple things. This graph uses percentages. The original data would have been in a percent, and that's why it's in percents. That doesn't have to be a percent, and it's only a percent if the original data is in a percent. See that as we look at some of the other pie charts. But that number is there because the original data had very dissatisfied, 50%. Very satisfied, what is that, 9%? Hard to read, dark. No. Somewhat satisfied, 14, and somewhat dissatisfied, 27. But see how you get a good understanding of how much of the whole that piece of data is? And so again, each chart has its value of when you'd use it depending upon what you're trying to portray. The second example, again, is a percent. A 2% example is a bummer, but we'll do one that's not percent for ours. This was President's proposed total spending in 2014. Notice it has a clear title. Do you think some of you are going to forget your title tonight in doing your homework? Yeah, and it's going to be -1 on the title. So again, people need to be able to look at your graph and know what's going on. Now, normally the label is on the pie piece. So this should have been in here and in white. This should have been in here, this should have been in here. That could have been in there, this one could have been in, that one could have been in, that one could have been in. But when you start getting the small pieces, and I won't give you these to make because you have so many angles to deal with, then you'll use the flyout to explain the piece. But look, we clearly can see, where's the biggest piece? Right here. What's the biggest piece of the budget? Social Security, unemployment, and labor, 33%. So again, we can clearly see. What's the second biggest piece? Okay, right here. Medical and health. Third, military. And then it goes on. So again, you're able to see, we all can understand differences in size, and we understand, therefore, how each piece relates. Any questions on any of that? Kristen?
The biggest piece, the smallest piece around.
It's generally the way I make them. I'll show you some of the ideas I have. This one, a program made it so it looks the way it looks. All right, let's get into the nuances of making these. All right, to make a pie chart, pie graph, circle graph, you must determine the number of degrees of each piece. So I see a lot of you have your calculators out. You're going to need your calculator here in a moment. You must memorize this formula. I will not give it to you on a quiz or a test. Now I left one thing off so that you would pay attention and we would write. So grab your green. It's the piece of data divided by the total of data. And then once you multiply that, This will give you a percent. Once you multiply it times 360, you'll figure out the number of degrees for that piece. Why do we multiply by 360? Christina? It's the number of degrees in a circle, right? 360. So, if you had only one piece, that would be an easy circle graph. You'd draw a circle and write in it what it is, and you'd be done. All right, you'd be done. And notice I told you to round to the nearest degree. We usually round to the 10th. But can anybody's protractor write out to the 10th of a degree? No. So we're just going to the nearest degree. By the way, tonight you need a compass to draw your circle. You need a protractor to be able to draw the angles. Right? Your compass to draw the circle. You need it. You can't draw it without a protractor. So, and every one of you is supposed to have one. It's part of your required equipment for pre-algebra. All right, B. Use a compass to draw the circle. C. Use a descriptive, what do you think? Title. So you're making your pie graph, right? You take your compass out. Oh, by the way, let me give you a little hint. I always put a mark on my paper for the center before I plunge my compass in. Because if you don't make a hole with your compass, you won't know where the center is, and you need to know where the center is. So I put a mark first, then I take my compass, put the point on the mark, and draw the circle round. You got to know the center of the circle. So that's a little tip. That's important. Next, use a protractor. Use a protractor to measure the size of each piece.
Use a protractor.
Not a John Deere tractor, but a protractor to measure the size of each piece, and then E, label each section. Label each section. Any questions about any of that, Christina? Looks like that, or like that, like that, or like that, like that, and it's got the degrees marked on it. Christina?
Homework. Y'all see graph paper?
A pie graph does not need to be on graph paper. Does not need to be on graph paper. Because the graphs, the lines of the graph do you no value. Okay. I'm going to have to, let me shrink a little bit here so I fit better. Down a little bit. Down a little more. Okay. So make a pie chart, circle graph of the Smith family monthly budget items. Okay. Now, I've already taken the liberty to mark the center of the circle and give you a circle. What I like to do right off the bat is write the title, otherwise I'll forget. Again, you got to have enough words. This is Smith family monthly budget. I don't know what else you can say. You have to say that. And again, you want your title to look nice. Smith family. And I already looked and said one long title might work, but I'm going to use 2 lines. You could use one. Monthly budget. And my title's done. But I try to do that right away so I don't forget. Make sense? Okay, now before we do anything else, we got to figure out what in the world each pie slice is worth. So the first thing I need is the total. So grab your calculator and total everything up. Once somebody has that number, if you'll raise your hand and let me know. Allison, it is 4,000. So I always start with the total because I need that piece of information. Now, I like to start with the biggest piece. That's personal preference. Do you have to? No, but I like to start that way. So when I do my first piece, I'm going to do the mortgage. And I'm just abbreviating right now because I just want to keep track of what I'm doing. So do you remember the formula? It's the amount you're dealing with, the mortgage, so 1,600 divided by the total, 4,000, and then times the 360 degrees. And so take your calculator, divide 1,600 by 4,000, then multiply by 360. And how are we rounding our degrees? To the nearest what? To the nearest degree. So once you're done with that, somebody raise your hand and tell me how many degrees we have for the mortgage. Colby?
144.
It is 144 degrees. Okay. Now I got to see if I can get my stuff to work, and I don't like the ruler and stuff, but it is what it is. All right. Probably up here. Yeah. All right, come down, ruler. Okay, so the first, I want to change the angle. When I want to do that, I'll never be able to. First thing I would do is take my protractor and the straight edge, and I would provide one side of the angle. Now, you might have to do that freehand if you have nothing to use. That's your starting. And I always do it right that way. It's just, in my estimation, the easiest way. Okay, again, you're going to be using your protractor to draw that. Let me move this out of the way. Now let me grab my protractor. Again, it's probably up here. Yeah. Oh. That's why these tools, it's so much easier doing this stuff on an overhead. Okay, now how in the world did I make it? I want it small again. I don't know how to make it small. There it is, okay. Okay. Once I get it going. No, I didn't want to do that. Electronics. Okay, so let me remind you how to use a protractor. Notice how I put the dot right at that intersection. Do you guys see that? In some protractors, it's actually a hole. You see that hole there and the lines? Again, your protractor is going to look really, really similar. You got that hole there, and you got this line. Just like I have that dot and the line. Do you see that? You have to put the hole on the center of the circle. And the line lines up with the line you drew. See how my hole is at the center of the circle, and the line in line with the hole is in line with my red line. That's what you have to do to use your protractor. Now, I need 144 degrees. You guys see how there are two scales? There's two scales on your protractor as well. But look, my line goes this way, right? So I start at 0 along this line, and therefore I'm reading the inside scale going this way. The other scale is if you go the opposite direction, but I'm not going that way. If my first line went this way, then I'd be reading this scale from 0 up. Do you follow how that works? So again, I am going this way, so I'm reading 0 inside. And now I got to go all the way. Now I got to go all the way around. Go back. No, go. No! Go back. Come on. How did I do it? No, not that one, that one. All right, let's try this again. Stop being so rebellious. Okay, see how I lined it up again? All right, and now I'm going from 0, and I got to go to 144. So 0, I'm going around. Here's 140, and now I go up here. I know this is 140. 141, 142, 143, 144. You see how I did that? So again, I'm on the inside until I got to 140. Then I went 141, 142. What happened to my pen? Oh, see, everything starts going bonkers when I use this protractor. So 144, you put a mark. Okay, you put a mark. And then you use your straight edge. Yeah, I know this stupid thing. Oh, there we go. Align. No, see, that's not even going to let me do that. Okay, I'm not going to use a straight edge because it'll drive me nuts. Pretend I have a straight edge, and I line up that mark in the center of my circle. Ha, I got a piece. We got a piece of pie. Again, I lined up the mark I made for my protractor in the center of the circle. Now, I got to label the piece. It's mortgage, right? You can do that. Mortgage is your house payment. Would be rent if you're renting. That usually is a major portion of your budget. And don't forget the amount, not the degrees. You don't write 144 degrees, you write the data. $1,600, don't forget the dollar sign. Does that make sense? Protractor. Okay, piece one done. Let's do our second piece. Again, I like big pieces, so I'm going to do other right now. Now, you might say, but Mr. Scarfi, I would have done something else first. That's okay. Your order, the order of the pieces in the pie chart are up to you. I just like using big pieces. So I'm going other. So again, remember, it's the amount of the other, which is 1,400, divided by what, class? 4,000, which is the total, times what, class? 360 degrees, all right? So how many degrees is this slice going to be? Brendan?
126.
And I think I agree. 120. Anybody concur on that? 126? Yes? How many got 126? All right. So now, how do I do it? Now watch this. Be careful here. Now, I got to get it at the center. But now I got to spin it. Oh boy, I hope I can spin it. Is it this one? Yeah. I have to line up that line all the way over here because I'm starting at that piece. Does that make sense? See, now I'm starting at that piece and now I need my next angle. That makes sense to you guys? Okay, so now I got to count off how many degrees. I need 126. And again, where is 0? Right here, right where my line is, where I'm starting. And I got to go all the way around to 126. And they're not going to be able to see this on the video because it's below where I'm showing. Never wants to write. All right, 126 is about there. And again, you can just approximate with yours. So again, I'm going to line up those two marks with my straight edge normally for this pie piece and stop at the circle, right? Don't go outside the circle. Let's label this piece. What is this? This is other. How much is it? $1,400. Make sense? How many pieces left? 2. All right, where do you want to go next? You want to go tithe and offering?
Utilities.
You want to do utilities?
Utilities.
All right, we're going to use utilities because she's outspoken, and that's fine. I asked you, right? So we're going to do utilities next. Got the idea on how to get the degrees? All right, so go ahead and figure out the degrees. By the way, normally I do my figuring a little bit further away from my pie chart so it looks pretty, and I would erase my extra marks when I'm done because I'm doing this in pencil usually, so it looks pretty. Utilities, who's got a degrees for me? Raise your hand and tell me degrees. Amber?
36 degrees.
I do have 36 degrees for my utilities. Hey, you know what? I'm going to go the other way on this one. Let's go the other way. So I got my center. Learn how to use this thing. Because I'm lining up this one and going this way, I start at 0, right? And how many degrees was it? 36. So again, I'm going to put my mark outside the 36, which is right about there. Never wants to write. I don't know why. Doesn't want to get me close to my protractor. So there's 36. Let me move my protractor away. And again, I'm lining that up with a straight edge normally. Don't forget your label, utilities. And again, the amount, $400. What are you going to do for the last piece?
Just write it in.
Hey, if it's the last piece, it's the last piece, all right? Whatever's left is the last slice. So again, though, we do have to write tithes and offerings. And the amount is $600. And now you can see the pieces of this person's budget that goes to the mortgage, that goes to utilities, that goes to tithes and offerings, that goes to other. Okay, other could be car payments and grocery bill and your kids' tuition and etc., right? Any questions on that? Any questions on that? So again, tonight you're going to need your compass and your protractor. Get good. Look, do you guys know what angles are, right? Do you know what an obtuse angle is? An angle that's bigger than
90.
90. You guys know that that's a 90-degree angle, right? So it opened up to 90, so greater than 90 has got to be bigger than that, right? So make sure when you draw it, look, that first angle is 144. That better be bigger than 90, right? The utility angle was only 36. That better be smaller than 90, right? So think about your angles and think, is this making sense what I drew? Because don't draw an obtuse angle and make it cute. Because there's nothing acute about obtuse, all right? But those thin ones, she's acute. All right, so just the way it is. I didn't name them. All right, we'll quit there. All right, so here's your homework.